Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. It is Sunday night, which means there's only one thing to be watching, except there's more than one thing to be watching tonight. There is a part of me right now that's dying that I turned the Oscars off, but this show demands my attention the minute that I can get my hands on it. What am I talking about? Oh, you should know. I mean, you should know. But if you don't, why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We are getting ready to take a watch and dive in spoiler-filled into HBO's The Last of Us season finale titled Look for the Light, which of course is episode 9. I definitely didn't do that like I normally do, but hey, I'm kerfuffled. It's one of these, like, I figured that this episode, just in general, knowing what it is, would probably get me emotional in some way, but I wasn't prepared for the amount of emotional feelings I just had while watching the Oscars. Freaking Short Round from Indiana Jones, Data from The Goonies is a freaking Oscar winner, and Ke Huy Quan's Oscar speech just whoo. I was done. So it's either going to be able to be easier to get through this because I've had my emotional moment already, or it's just priming me for the end of this episode. But I'm stoked, man. You know me. If you guys have been watching every week, this adaptation for me is damn near flawless. And I can't wait to see them bring it home, especially knowing that we're going to touch on Anna's story. But before we get to this week, I got some things to talk about from last week, which was another phenomenal episode. While, I talked to some people, I have some friends who have played the game, and they're like, man, dude, but like, it felt like they rushed through some things, man. Like, why would you not have David help Ellie fend off a bunch of zombies, get that life-threatening moment where you could really trust him, even down to, like, if it was just like one zombie, like the mall, but like something that like they kind of sped through that. And I went, look, I get it. There are moments in the game that I absolutely adore. The Bill stretch in the game is one of my favorites. It's so much fun. It was something I was very much looking forward to. That relationship. It's one of my favorite things in the game. As is and even if you didn't adapt that stuff, like the Joel getting flipped upside down moment, like that stuff's great, and you could have worked that into that episode. But it's one of those where even this stretch, one of the more fun areas to play is this. It's just like you're kind of like in this room that's got like two levels. It's like got like a little concrete level here, and then the main one down here. There's some big duct, and then there's like a little bridge area, and they're just zombies just coming nonstop, and you and David just gotta fight them all off, and it's a lot of fun. A bloater shows up, and I get why game fans would want to see that, but when you slow yourself down and you think about the world that we've built, the way that they go about the episode, I think makes a ton of sense. One, we've already established that in remote areas, you really don't run into a lot of infected. And outside of that, like, one stretch with David, there are no infected over by where everybody's living. So it would make less sense for them to just be, like, in the woods. I mean, Joel felt very much safe when him and Ellie camped out in the woods, or any time that they've camped out in the woods, more worried about people showing up. So, like, that would be one thing for me. But two, even if you thought, like, they did kind of rush through that conversation a little bit, and first watch, even I was like, interesting, they kind of moved right to that. But the way that it builds, and the fact that it's only a sliver where you see Ellie starting to maybe let her guard down a little bit, it works a lot better in the outcome of the episode and how she is interacting with David and how that whole story is playing itself out. Like, the way I think that it's built in from the character perspective, it made a lot of sense for them to not be really, really tight. And things like that, like, I'm okay when you're making those adaptations because you are getting the soul of that chapter of the game. But Even as much as we pick up when we watch it, you know that when I rewatch these episodes, I definitely pick up on smaller things. And one of the funnier things for me, cutting last week's episode, I jumped right to the cannibal stuff, right? Like, as a fan of the game, you know that David and James, like, they're in this group of people that are eating other people, and it's pretty gnarly looking. And they don't really stray too much from it. And the moment that happens in the game, it's quite shocking. And we'll get to that because I'm pretty sure it's in my notes. But I just immediately jumped there, right? And was like, oh, that's where we're going. Not thinking like, oh, duh, in the game, the whole reason that David is chasing them down is because of the people in the game. They killed multiple people. Here it's the one dad. And I'm sitting there just going like, oh man, who died? Was it like, did they get bit? What was it? How are they going to eat them? Oh man, do these people know that they're eating this person? Like, I was just going straight to the cannibal stuff, not like to the actual thing. Now, nevertheless, they 100% ate that man. But I kind of like the fact that, like, having that approach where you're easing into it, it's like, okay, we're meeting the colony, which we don't really get in the game. You're just kind of mowing through the colony in the game. I kind of like that, like, if you think about it from a creator standpoint, they figure that our heads are going right there, right? Like, oh man, like, everybody's free because maybe this is the first time they're eating a person or something like that. Or, like, and I'm not thinking there. I kind of like that they let it linger a little bit or played with it until they gave you that kind of full reveal. For me, that was really satisfying, especially the second time around. I also like that David allows himself, or almost doesn't allow himself, to flash his old self in front of people in the colony, right? Like, when he talks to Ellie and talks about having a dark heart, and a violent heart, like, it's one of those where, you know, finding religion and stuff was supposedly the thing that reformed this guy, and, you know, he very much likes the power that he has, and he wants people to know that, like, he commands a certain level of respect. And I like that, like, even in front of his people, he can't hold back that part of him, even if he thinks in his own head that, and I don't think that he thinks, like, I think that he's reformed himself to a point, but he knows it's there. And as you see, like, when it slips out, he doesn't try to hide it, and that adds an extra layer of, like, the evil and sinisterness to David that I thought Shepard really captured quite well last week. And then, like, one of the other things that I really like in that section, and specifically, it's mostly Troy Baker, when, you know, they're getting ready to like bring the food out and stuff. Like, you see a couple shots of the people that do know that it's humans, and, like, that's the thing for me in the episode where I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely eating people here, they're not eating meat. And again, that's like one of those double takes too that I liked, where it's, you think that, oh well, they could be serving them venison here because they did just get that deer, and they drag the deer in. It's like, yeah, nah, they definitely ate that dude. And you can see it in Troy Baker's face in that one shot when they go to him, like, this is gonna be like, if these people find out, I wouldn't want to see what happens to David. And I guess fortunately or unfortunately for him, because of the way he goes, he wouldn't have to deal with, like, lots of people doing that type of stuff to him. Just Ellie. Oh man, I really loved that stuff. And, you know, like, we already talked about how, like, you could have done something with a zombie or something that could have put Ellie in some sort of danger where David helps her. But I kind of like that, even though, since they don't do that, they found a way to work in her line of, like, oh man, we got super lucky after they survive all the zombies, into, like, your luck was bound to run out sooner or later. And, like, you know, it tees up the spot for David to be able to talk about luck exactly the way that he does in the game. And that's the thing that I just love in general, is, like, when you're seeing the writing that Craig Mazin does, you can see if he does tweak or change something because they alter something else, right? Like, they're not in a situation where they get lucky, so how do you get that line in there? It's really clever when you see him doing that, especially when you're looking at them side by side. And another one of those things where, like, not playing the stretch of the game last week, when Ellie gets taken right away after falling off the horse, it's a clever piece of consolidation. But it almost, in some ways, like, I kind of wish she maybe could have gotten away a little bit longer, or had a chance to, you know, pull off something or other when she does get away, because, you know, she's got the gun, because in the game, after she falls, she gets all the way, she mows through the whole town, basically. Like, you got to take out, I want to say, like, 15 something guys, like, right on that lakefront area. And then you go inside, and then David jumps you. So, I mean, while I think it could have been cool to see a little bit more of that, considering what we end up getting from Bella in the preceding moments, so another spot, like, I'm fine that you kind of shrink that down. But, like, that's definitely a spot more so where I could see, like, including a piece of that in some way, for me, probably would have been more effective than having her do something with David. And if you were going to be like, gameplay stuff that I miss, stretches where Ellie has to take on some of those hunters that isn't just James and David, I think could have added to her character. But again, what we get is enough for us to know, like, yeah, Ellie can ride, you know what I mean? And speaking to the point that I was saying, like, about changing up the stuff with David, when Ellie does get caught, she is far more antagonistic immediately when she's in the cage, where, like, in the game, she does end up eating, the venison when he first says it because she's hungry, and then she stops and builds herself into that kind of argument before, like, kicking it back at him, where, like, this Ellie, she didn't trust David really at all, or have time to really trust him. She might have been thinking about it or starting to come around to it, but by not, it's a lot easier for her, I think, to get as angry as she does, and that's something that this version of the character has been building to all season. So again, it's another reason why I kind of like that. Like that tweak for me works, I think, pretty decently. Now, the one thing I will say about that sequence that I think maybe is a little bit more effective in the game is that Ellie doesn't, like, just see an ear that got missed being cleaned up. There is someone, what you think is hacking up meat, and all of a sudden it's like it comes down and he pushes the thing to the side, and it's a human arm that just falls off the table. And that moment in the game, you're just like, oh, shit. You know what I mean? Like, because it hasn't sunk in or hit at that point that that's what's going on here. And knowing that they have the deer and the other things that we know, you're not thinking that it's going to be a human limb. And when that arm gets slid over, you're like, oh, this just got, like, a different level of dark. And while, you get the same general feel by seeing the earlobe there, or most of the ear of the person, that was one spot where I think the game doing it, like, if you would have had James, like, cutting somebody up and then David comes in and starts talking to her, like, that maybe would have worked a little bit better. The other change, though, that I do like a lot in this is that in the game, Joel just wakes up. Like, Ellie says some of the stuff that she says, but he's totally unconscious for sure. So he gets up and doesn't really know what's going on and just immediately knows he has to go try and find Ellie. And I like the fact that, like, Ellie tells him what's going on. He's conscious when she does. And, like, he's just there with a knife. So that you get that scene where, in the game, and I've said it before, Joel is very Terminator-esque in the sense that, like, you can't keep that dude down for very long. And like I said, in the game, he falls through, like, a ribbed piece of metal, like the ones that are inside concrete, not like a chunk of wooden bat that just like he all through and through, like through his whole body. And they do like a go to dark and they jump to winter time, but like he gets up and you're right back to being Joel once you take that over again. And I've personally really enjoyed how they've made Joel seem a little bit more vulnerable. It's something that makes the sequence with Tommy and wanting to have Tommy take her hit more because he knows he's not a Terminator here. And I like that you get this moment where it's like, yeah, this dude isn't going to be able to take out like 20 dudes, Like, it's one of those where it's okay that you don't see the colony anywhere. Like, that's the one thing that's kind of strange in the show is, like, the restaurant is on fire and nothing is happening, like, in the colony, and we only see Joel take out a couple people. It's like, where is everybody? What's going on? In the game, you don't even think twice about that because you've literally killed probably everybody that was in the colony, but that's far less believable in this world. And I think it hits harder when you see Joel have to use every ounce of energy that he has just to try to hold this guy down. Like, that death can't be quick because Joel doesn't even have the energy to try to make it quicker. And I think that's something that I think works quite well. And the fact that, like, in the game, it's a little bit more of a fight when he runs into the next two guys, it's super clever that he definitely gets the drop on both of them and just knocks them out and is able to beat Joel. And very, he's able to be violent without having to exert much energy. And that's another thing that plays into the end where, I was like, it definitely, the Ellie sequence is definitely shorter in the game, and that it is. And what's funny is when I lined it up, as soon as I said, the moment I said, man, this feels like it's going on longer than it did in the game, that was literally when the game moment stopped, and it's Joel that breaks it up. He pulls Ellie off of David. That's something that I kind of forgot to mention last week, and it's one of those where Joel being how he is, I don't know if he does save Ellie in that situation, right? Like, he could have become more of a liability, and maybe the only way Ellie gets out of there alive is if Joel ends up dying. So, like, the fact that you kind of build him in the show to, he's taken a licking, he's not 100% yet, he can't be that Terminator guy, it's got to be Ellie that finishes the job. And not having Joel there to break it up, she exhausts herself, and taking it as long as they do, some people could say overkill, and I say every time they have decided to stay in a moment longer than they did in the game, it works really, really, really well. And yeah, it's brutal, but you need to see that level of brutal and understand it. And playing as Ellie, you can understand some of it because, she inflicts brutality to the way she kind of kills people when she's sneaking up on them. And the responses that she has kind of give you vibes of that. But we haven't had many moments of it in the show, and I thought they've built it quite well to that moment with the little bits that we have seen. I also love the addition of David being a preacher post-apocalypse. I think that's really fascinating, and it's one of these things where, I think they utilize that conversation in a way where, like, some people could look at this and be like, oh yeah, the crazy preacher, and it's like, no, man, that's not why I like that bit. I like the fact that, like, for that character to figure out any way to not be as evil as he is all the time, he had to find something. So yeah, he found a little bit of faith. Is he someone who's gonna be marching to heaven with the stuff that he's been doing? Absolutely not. And there is no redemption for David. And that's one of the things that I like even more about making him a preacher is, like, this guy found something that saved him when he, there might have been no saving him otherwise. And it let him think that maybe there was a chance of redemption. Even if he's not living to the word, like, there's this bit where it's like, oh man, you know what? Finding this, there's hope. Maybe I could find it. And by the time you get to the end of David's story, he is everything that you would think him to be. He's a predator. He is a violent man. And the ending that he gets is a deserved ending. And one of the things that, they do a decent job of, because it recreates the moment well, as far as, like, David being a predator when he, kind of is talking about wanting to change things with Ellie. When Joel is interrogating those two guys, the dude who says David has her adds a little bit more context, where he says that Ellie is David's newest pet. And that's a line where, like, when it wasn't there, you're kind of like, especially like when I was editing, I was like, oh man, that would have been like a badass line and something that fires Joel up. And that's something that probably gets Joel to get into that restaurant in time to pull Ellie off. And the fact that it's not there, like, he clearly knows bad things are going on, but I don't think it's like you hear, like, David's new pet, and you're a dad. Powering adrenaline, right? And you don't end up getting that in the episode, so it makes a lot of sense that the line actually isn't in the show. And then, just sticking with David, I do love the addition that they give to that scene where he's talking to Ellie when she's in jail, where he's, talking about rationalizing and, like, the reasons for why he's doing what he's doing, but do you think that doesn't cause him shame, right? Like, it's one of these when you think about that idea of like, oh, a guy who thinks he's found some kind of redemption, it's like, look, I'm not, I don't have, a dark, violent heart right now. I'm not that person. We're doing what we have to do to survive. But, because he thinks there's some sort of redemption for him or that he could be good, it's like, yeah, do you think it shames me that I got to eat humans, but we got to do what we got to do. And I also do love that bit about Ellie having like, a violent and dark heart. Right now I can't remember which one the line is. In my notes, it's dark heart, but I feel like it's violent heart in the episode. Whichever one that he does, I love that whole addition because it really does feed into, again, the character development and propping up Ellie, leading her to that wonderful build of, I mean, for some people maybe not wonderful, but like that execution of like that moment where she chops David up. That is just the last bit of that you need before you get to see what that really looks like. And to that point, we've only seen glimpses. And I would say that once you do get to the restaurant, it gets so spot on to the game. But I did kind of wish in some way that you could have been able to have David toy with Ellie a little bit more. Like when he gets her on the ground before she's able to get the blade, like he kicks her, I think in the game, like 3 times, and it's like you can definitely tell that like the thing that you're supposed to be seeing here is like no matter how hard Ellie fights and how tough Ellie is, she's still a little girl, and just the sheer physical size of David is something that is a game changer in that fight. Like if she can't get the drop on him, she can't go toe to toe, and it's one of the things where it's like I wish there would have been a little bit more of the running around. And like initially when she stabbed him and looked like she was gonna get away, like I thought they were gonna have him be stabbed multiple times. And it's just because that tension, the way that David plays, and some of the things that he yells when he's walking around, which they do cover most of, like it does just kind of give you this thing where it's like, man, Ellie's got to be so fast, so clever right now in order to take this guy down. But like it's at the same time, that's also the thing that allows David to not get there fast enough so that Ellie can grab the blade and end up killing him. But it definitely, I think, would have added another level of sadisticness to the David that we have here had he made Ellie really push to get to that blade rather than just kind of going right in on her the way that he does. And that's, again, like one of those things where you can talk to, like, yeah, okay, maybe there were moments that felt like they could have been a little bit rushed. But at the end of the day, you get to the end of that episode, and I was more than satisfied, and you accomplish everything that you need to accomplish. And more often than not, the additions outweigh the subtractions, and that's definitely how I felt again last week. And this week, I'm stoked, man. Like this is, I mean, it's the finale night, and it's a big piece that clearly, obviously sets up everything in front of us. Now, there are a couple things I do want to address going into the week. Is in talking to you guys, I talked about like 7 years between the stories, and like I haven't played 2 since the beginning of the pandemic. It's only, I think when you said it was only 3 or 4 years in storytelling, even though it's a 7-year gap between the actual titles coming out, which would make Ellie 19, I think she is in the game. Which is exactly the age that Bella is right now. And I think by the time they actually would start shooting, she should be 20. And I did see somebody do a mock-up with the shorter hair and the tattoo on her arm. Spoilers, Ellie gets a tattoo so that she doesn't always have to wear long sleeves because she has the scar. I mean, it's something that makes a lot of sense. And one of those things in the show, like if you don't really necessarily pay attention to it, but the only time that we have seen Ellie's arm without her rolling it up to look at a bite is in the episode with Riley, because she hasn't been bit yet, so she has kind of like 3/4 sleeves on. I think in the game she's got like a cutoff on. But other than that, it's always long sleeves. Sorry, mild spoiler there. Nothing crazy. But someone did like a mock-up of it, and I saw that, and I was like, oh yeah. I mean, I personally believe Bella could do everything you need her to do. And seeing like a mock-up, like with hair and makeup, it will click if they jump right to part 2. Now, when you also said that they heard somewhere that Druckmann might have mentioned, or maybe it was Mason, said that they won't be able to do like part two in just one season, and that would be that was my other hope, is like, if you're gonna go right into that story, break that story up into two seasons, because there is more than enough story in part two to do that. So if that is true, I'm even more excited, and I just certainly hope that Druckmann and Mason get the opportunity to tell this story exactly how they want it, however long they want it to be, because they're doing everything justice by the way that they're doing it. And I'm excited about this week because of one of Neil Druckmann's tweets. He posted something that looks like a comic book cover that's kind of inspired by the mini comic book run they had, American Dreams, which is sort of similar to the story that we get in the game with Ellie and Riley. And I hadn't ever read it, and I read it the other day. And a lot of the stuff that we get pre the DLC bit in there is actually kind of pulled from that. And it's a cool read. Look it up, because that's one of the spots where you see Ellie finally meet Marlene for the first time. Like I said, in the game, she's very aware of who Marlene is, and that's the reason. And Marlene also gives her something that I think Ellie is going to get in this episode, which is a letter from her mother, and maybe Ellie already has it because Marlene did hand her off. But whatever, that letter should probably surface, because we are gonna get Anna's story, and that's what that like comic book cover looking thing that Druckmann posted was. And I never even put this together. So Druckmann works at Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog, obviously responsible for Uncharted, which is like the PlayStation heralded like narrative game, and that was one of the things, like Druckmann said the other week, like they never thought that that this game was going to like outdo or kind of be as big as Uncharted when they made it, and thank God it was. And I really wish they had done Uncharted HBO style. I think that would work better, but that's a different story. But in Uncharted 4, one of the things that either you pass or you pick up is a poster that is that thing, and it's of a pregnant woman dressed like I think she's got like a leather jacket on, a revolver, and a gas mask on, and that's Ellie's mom. And it's one of these things where nothing ever came of that. There was no comic book because the art is very similar to the comic book run that they have. And it's one of those where, like, for a while, people were kind of like wondering, like, whatever happened to that thing. Like, it was teased in, a game that wasn't The Last of Us, and having had a comic book run that looked similar and built in the very same kind of way. American Daughters is what's on that poster. American Dreams was the run. Whatever happened to it. And now tonight is gonna, like, that's why Druckmann tweeted that, is tonight is the night that we're gonna probably get what that story would have been had he done it as a comic book. And maybe it's just a piece, and maybe we will get a comic book. With the success, I'm pretty sure Druckmann could do anything that he wants at this point with the story. But I'm very excited about that. One, we're gonna get to see Ashley Johnson, who voices Ellie in the games, so that's gonna be freaking dope. And it's probably gonna be a very intense and emotional scene, which is why Kiwi winning the Oscar may have just tuned me up for some beatdown later on. But I'm really pumped for that. And like I said, the end of this story, Joel getting Ellie to this hospital and everything that goes down in the hospital, is just such an important stretch. And I'm really fascinated to see how they bring it to life. It's one of these where we kind of skipped over the first time that Ellie gets into trouble with water, not having that be a part of the Sam and Henry story. I think very much tonight will be the night where we almost see Ellie drown, and that's the thing that brings them into the hospital. The Fireflies save them. So that's something I do want to see happen in the episode. And again, I apologize if that's a spoiler. I've hoped that this whole video is spoiled. You would have watched the episode already, so I could talk freely about what's coming up. But it is one of those, like, I hope we get to see that. I'm very excited about the conversation that Marlene and Joel will have before you get to the surgery stuff and Ellie's chance to be the cure. And I'm just stoked to see how Pedro handles the breaking of the news that it'll kill Ellie, and it's the only way to do it, and storming into that room and saving her. That I think is gonna be like that conversation with Tommy is like the Emmy moment tonight could also be one of those things that you see in like that Emmy reel during the nomination stretch, or the thing that like people are looking at, like when they're kind of campaigning. That has the ability to be an unbelievably emotional moment for Pedro and Joel. And then I'll be interested to see if they end it exactly where they end it in the game, or if they take it a little bit. Like there's part of me that could see them maybe getting all the way, like after Joel gets out, getting that piece of the drive and the conversation between the two of them, and then actually physically getting back to Jackson and Tommy, and kind of teeing up season 2 that way. So I'll be interested to see how they adapt it. It's going to be 45 minutes, which seems quick, but even when they've had quicker episodes this season, it really is one of those, like, they pack a lot in and they do it really well. So it's Oscar night. We got to get back in for the last hour to see the big awards. So let's not waste any more time. HBO Max, where is the episode? Pulling it up. It wasn't up on its thing yet, but it was pushing play here. So here we go. Time to dive in to... Oh, wait, get the episode up if I didn't do that. I'm like all over the place right now. Like I said, Oscar night, it's throwing me off. But episode is up. It's in my ear. We are getting ready to take a dive into HBO's The Last of Us, Season 1, Episode 9, Look for the Light. Hopefully we're getting our ad. And there we go. This is just an HBO Max ad. Alright, so watch more epic dramas. Succession. That and Perry Mason and White Lotus. All shows I need to, like, in my free time. Those are ones I need to start jumping into. And I should jump on the Batman bit, because it's so good. I can watch it all the time. South Park's new season is off to a strong start. Saw a lot of Elvis because that's on HBO right now. And that costume shot where you saw all the different ones looks very much like that could be a winner tonight, when it gets to either hair or makeup or costume. We'll see after this week of The Last of Us. But we're going to recap the whole season right now. Smart to recap Marlene, because we're going to see her.
How long do infected live?
Some last about a month or two.
You ever kill one?
We've all killed lots of them now. Anna Torv, man. She crushed it. That feels so long, right? Like, it's one of these things, like, it's like, I can't believe we're already at the finale. But at the same time, it also feels like the beginning of the show was forever. Like, Tess's story seems so long ago. But I'm also, like, I can't believe that we're at the end of the season already.
I stayed up all night wondering where the
I'll
sun
never...
went. And then it dawned on
I'll never get the pun book will never get old. I mean, I love that we're getting like the full season recap, because, God, man, there's so many great moments and recreations, and like, I can't wait to watch and see this just take all of the awards come Emmy and Golden Globe time. Pedro, Bella, Craig, Neil, cinematography. I like it. It could take everything. It's just so good. And the thing that they have done, I think, the most perfectly is the relationship. And I mean, it's the thing that they should have done the most perfectly. But the relationship between Ellie and Joel has just been perfect. And Pedro and Bella, it's just so good. I mean, somebody told me this too. I was talking to one of my friends at work. Apparently, they shot the scene with Pedro where she walks out of, or maybe it was one of you guys told me in the comments, where she walks out of the restaurant first, and then they shot the actual scene. That's crazy control, and we're jumping right into it, baby. Oh, Ashley. This is gonna be heartbreaking, though. So one of the things Marlene says to Ellie in the comic book is like your mom gave everything to keep you safe. So I can't wait to see that visualized now here. Like, what is Anna gonna go through to get Ellie to the world and then get Ellie safe before, she meets her end? I'm so excited for Ashley Johnson, man.
It's me. Anyone?
Okay, so you can hear Ellie. Especially like with all the sound effect noises she's got to make right now. That's something you get a lot in a video game. And I was gonna say that sounded wet. Water broke. Time for a baby. Oh god! And she's clearly running from zombies. She is very pregnant. The knife. So one of the other things, the comic is the moment where Marlene says that knife is your mother's. So you make sure it doesn't get confiscated. Oh my god, this is gonna be insane. Like, are you kidding me? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god, get it. Oh. Oh my god. Oh. Oh my god, the baby's already here. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh man, and she got. Well, I mean, we knew that was gonna happen, but. Oh. I feel like that could be an online debate. How difficult was Ellie's birth? She seemed to just pop right out, but I don't think many people are having a baby while killing a zombie. That was intense.
Yeah, you tell her. You fucking tell him, Ellie.
you know, she's got her mama's tongue. Ellie, I love that. It's so beautiful, man.
Hi. Oh, you're so tough. I got you. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Like, can you imagine? Like, I any mother that I've ever talked to, like, that is, especially the first one, like, single greatest day in a mother's life. And there's stuff that happens in the real world, right? Like mothers that die and know that they're gonna die in birth to get their kids here, stuff like that. But like, to have that moment of joy, but also know like it this is it. This is all I'm gonna get. Like this one day. And that's another thing too, right? Where it's like that Riley story, you fight for every second you get, and that is literally like in Ellie's DNA already. Seeing her mom fight every second possible to make sure she gets here, right? Like she gets bit, she gets killed, and doesn't have the baby. Ashley Johnson, I was so happy for her, man. That had to be. I can't wait for the inside of the episode. That had to be such a crazy feeling and emotional scene for her. But I love it. Like you see, like Ellie is her mom's daughter. Like when Marlene says you remind me a lot of your mom. Like, I like that you get to see that. Ooh, here we go. What's up, Merle? Haven't seen you since episode 2. Or I guess it would have been the end of episode 1. Yeah, I mean, ain't seen Merle since episode 1. I also like going back in time. That was the cold open. Pretty much every time, outside of like telling the original story, but like almost any time we've had a cold open, it's been a jump backwards. Oh, that's what it is. I was gonna say, I was like, I don't see any gray in Merle's hair, and I feel like she had some gray in our time. This is the house where we're gonna see the end of the story, so that's good. I'm glad that they didn't cut it off. I want more for Ashley Johnson. I'm greedy where I can be. I'm letting her sing too. Oh man, like ready to. Wow.
It's not your fault. We were delayed getting out of the zone. She's hungry. She needs to be fed, and I didn't want to nurse her.
I wonder if that would have to, right?
I cut it before I was bit. Before.
Not before, though. And that's probably why Ellie is immune.
Find someone to bring her up and make sure that she's safe. I can't do that. And I want you to give her this.
Her name is Ellie.
I can't. How long have we known each other?
Can't really say no.
Our whole lives. So you pick her up and then you kill me. I can't kill you.
Oh, it's so messed up, Marlene.
Please! No!
Marlene, are you serious? You're gonna let her turn?
Here. Hold her. There you go. Take this.
Good girl, Marlene.
Cover her ears.
Job covering her ears, moron. That makes. It's gonna make. I feel like that's gonna make the impact of Marlene deciding to go through with things hit even harder too. She's reading the note. She does have it already, right? It's gotta be what it is.
Ellie, do you hear me?
No? What?
I found this in there. Beefaroni, Chef Boyardee.
Oh, cool.
Boggle.
Have you ever played this? Boggle? It's a word game. If you want to beat me at something, it would be this.
I love Joel accepting of fatherhood in this scenario, right?
Hospital that way. Maybe the one we're looking for.
Maybe she wasn't reading the letter. No letter. The other thing though that open gives you is like the brutality of this world there in day one for Ellie. Just like the brutality of what this world is was there day one for Joel, right? Like Neil Druckmann, dude.
They had a guitar in that RV. It's all smashed up, but got me thinking, maybe I should find one.
Yeah, teach you how to play.
In fact, I was thinking maybe I could teach you. I bet you'd be great at it.
Yeah. Big piece of
You
part
want to learn how to
two.
play guitar? Ellie?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Joel, just ask her what's going on. Even when he's opening up, he's still so Joel. But finally making it to Salt Lake City. It still seems kind of... I guess we're on the backside of winter because they're not wearing heavy jackets. Maybe there won't be water.
Okay, so this is what I'm thinking.
Cut through that building to get around that stuff, find a skyscraper, go up and look around.
This time I was thinking we blast our way through that rubble. I found some dynamite in that RV back there.
No.
So we're gonna cut through that building, find a skyscraper, go up and look around. I had you going, didn't I?
She is so... Duh. It's, man, like, the storytelling makes you think, like, that moment is her somehow thinking about her mom. She's still living with the David stuff, and we have... Oh, God. My brain some days.
Military drops bombs. Not one of them hits the building you're trying to demolish.
The chattiest Joel is... We're not talking about the thing. Waiting for it.
If I get you up there, you can drop that ladder down. Maybe we go through that way.
Dropping ladders. Classic video game move. Can't avoid Joel.
You okay?
Yeah, fine.
Just you kind of seem extra quiet today, so...
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Did you hear what I...
Yeah, boost. Got it.
It's crazy to, like, listen to Ashley Johnson and hear Ellie, and then the minute Bella starts talking, like, hear Ellie.
1, 2, up!
Alright. We can get a Molotov or a built shank, but Joel lifting Ellie up to get a ladder. That feels good.
Whoa.
Ellie!
Up here!
Ellie!
Yes. Yes. This is gonna be such a... It's like, what's the thing that gets Ellie to stop thinking about the shit she's been thinking about? This is gonna be so freaking cool, man. It looks just like the game. Freaking giraffes! Every time Ellie's with an animal in the game, man, it's just a moment that, like, you can't... Like, they just all stick. The monkeys, the horse.
Don't scare it.
Another thing the comic does, shows you the first time Ellie rides a horse. With Winston.
What are you doing?
It's alright.
The giraffe. This is a great moment.
Can you hurry up? Come on.
And it's a wonderful moment for her to get after everything that she's just gone through, right? Like, just the innocence of seeing an animal you've never seen before in real life. Like, I feel... Oh, the first time you ever see a giraffe for real, man, those tongues are crazy. It's beautiful. She deserves that. Look at
So fucking cool.
That's awesome.
Well, where's she going? Come on, come on, come on, come on.
This is, and again, it's one of those things I love in the game too, is like she starts booking and running for all these things. Like, Ellie's right back in kid mode for just a brief period. They're nailing it. Shocking. I also love the scoring that's going on right now. I mean, the score of the whole season has been great, but the way this whole stretch is just shot and scored just hits, man.
So, is it everything you hoped for?
It's got its ups and downs. You can't deny that view.
Beautiful callback.
Look, I don't know exactly where this hospital is.
Yeah, we'll find it.
Maybe there's nothing bad out there, but so far there's always been something bad out there.
We're still here, though.
I'm only saying there's risk.
Thanks,
We don't
Captain
have to do
Obvious.
this.
He's ready to
I
bail.
want you to know
Just
that.
wants a
What
daughter.
do you mean? What else are we supposed to do?
Nothing. We just go back to Tommy's. We forget about the whole damn thing.
Ellie can't do that. It has to mean something. She has to mean something.
Everything I've done, it can't be for nothing.
That line.
I know you want to protect me. You have. And when we're done, we'll go wherever you want. Tommy's, Sheep Ranch, the moon. I'll follow you anywhere you go.
Has to mean, like, killing David has to
But
mean
there's no halfway
something.
with this.
Yep.
We finish what we started.
Finish what we started. Oh, I push in. Like, so subtle. But, like, you feel everything that she's been going through on the screen for the last 5-10 minutes, right? Like, everything I've done. Like, hacking that dude's face to pieces can't be for nothing. You know, this journey has a very specific endpoint. And that's everything for Ellie right now. And it goes all the way back to Riley, right? And not having that moment where she loses her mind, right? She doesn't have her end. And that survivor's guilt on top of the things she's done. Like, this has got to be the moment, you know? Which makes Joel saving her really interesting storyline.
They put these places up all around. The first few days after the outbreak.
Oh, nice.
Well, camps. Obviously didn't last. They had me in one just like this.
With Sarah?
No, she was gone already.
So what was wrong with you?
Just for this.
The guy who shot and missed. I figured that would have happened later.
Day one.
Well, I gotta
Day
hand it
two.
to the army people. They were way better at stitching you up than I was.
It was me.
Oh, shit.
I was the guy who shot and missed.
I don't...
There's no story. Sarah died, and I couldn't see the point anymore. Simple as that. And I wasn't scared either. I was ready. I couldn't have been more ready. And when I went to pull the trigger, I flinched. Still don't know why. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you all this
I
is...
know why you're telling me all this.
Yeah, I reckon you do.
So time heals all wounds, I guess.
It wasn't time that did it.
Oh, fuck me, Pedro.
Well, I'm glad that didn't work out.
Me too.
Whew.
We should probably get going.
Yeah.
Wow. I tell you, dude, Emmys. I thought the fight to get to her was going to be the moment. Whew.
Oh.
Oh, shitty puns, yes. The
We're
return.
making apocalypse jokes like there's no
No
tomorrow.
pun intended, part 2.
Too soon?
No, it's topical.
Moon rocks taste better than Earth rocks. Why? Because they're meteor.
That's a 0 out of 10.
All right. What did the green grape say to the purple grape? Breathe, you idiot.
That's a 3 out of 10.
7.
I'll
Minutes.
give it a 5.
7.
5
Uh-oh.
out of 10.
Uh-oh. Oh, man. All right, yeah, so we're not going to do the water. Just getting jumped. Or maybe it could be the water. But it certainly seems like, yeah, they're just going to get snagged. Oh, my God. Instead of going black, going bright white. It's a choice. Makes sense. Having bashed my head into my end table immediately upon coming to and going to my chair. Bright white. I can confirm that one. But yeah, in the game, they get caught up in a current, and
Off into the fireflies.
by the time he gets to the shore, that's where he
Yeah,
gets
hit pretty hard.
knocked out.
Patrol didn't know who you were.
Thanks, Marlene.
Not even a scratch. She's mostly worried about you. We lost half our crew crossing the country. I had 5 men whose only job was to protect me. I still almost got killed. How'd you do it?
It was all her. She fought like hell to get here.
She would have been dead on day 1.
She does fight like hell.
You are the one person I never wanted to be in debt to. But I owe you.
Whole world's gonna owe you.
She's
What?
being prepped for surgery.
What surgery?
Our doctor, he thinks that the cordyceps in Ellie has grown with her since birth.
Why is she in surgery?
It produces a kind of chemical messenger. It makes normal cordyceps think that she's cordyceps. It's why she's immune. Multiply the cells in a lab, produce those chemical messengers, and then we can give it to everyone. He thinks it could be a cure, Joel.
Why is she in surgery?
Cordyceps grows inside the brain.
It does.
Gotta kill
Find
her.
someone else.
There is no one else. We didn't tell her. We didn't cause her any fear. There won't be any pain.
No, you take me to her. You take me to her right now! You don't understand.
I do. I was there when she was born.
does.
I promised her mother that I would save her child. I promised.
Not
So I
doing,
do understand.
not doing a good job of it right now.
I have no other choice.
I do.
Walk him out to the highway. Leave him there with his pack. Give him this.
Her knife.
If he tries anything, shoot him.
I cannot wait for the stretch that I think might, like, one of the few gameplay stretches of the game that I think they're going to do. I think they're going to do the one that we would expect. Although I guess it could be less people. Joel should just go on a killing rampage right now. Very satisfied with that. You should not push Joel.
I didn't hear anyone say stop.
Cardiology.
Which way?
Downstairs.
Where's it coming? How's he gonna get the drop on him? Shouldn't push that, man.
The fuck are you doing? Keep walking. I said keep walking.
Yep, there it goes. Oh, let's go.
Fuck you.
Nah.
Time for this.
Yep. Let's go. I want to see Joel rip through this place. Yep, get them extra bullets. Go time, baby. Pedro's gonna get his Terminator moment. I mean, like, oh, God. You just feel it, man. I love that they're doing this from an emotional push, right? Slow it down. Listen to the score right now. Like, you know, it's not a visceral, brutal clearing. Just methodical. But I'm glad of all the gameplay stretches that they're leaning into, like, yeah, Joel's gotten to kill a bunch of people right now. This vibe, I'm like, I love that they keep going to his feet, too. You can surrender if you want. Bop, bop. Gotta kill everyone for this girl. It's one of these, like, I'll be interested to see, like, audiences' reactions. Like, that moment when you find that out, you feel everything Joel feels so hard in the game because you've been him the whole game. And they've definitely brought this relationship to a point where this hits. Oh my God. Different kind of Terminator, or same kind, just different feeling vibe to that. That's, like I said, I love how they shifted up the vibe of that sequence. Pediatric surgery. Go time, Joel. Step away from the girl.
Unhook her.
How did you get in here?
I said unhook her.
I won't let you take her.
Unhook her.
Move! Oh my God.
Cover her arm. Fast.
The other arm.
Turn around.
I guess it was down. Pop, pop. No. Gotta let the nurses live.
Can't keep her safe forever.
Can you watch me?
No matter how many people you kill, she's gonna grow up, Joel. And then you'll die, or she'll leave. Then what? How long till she's torn apart by infected or murdered by raiders? Because she lives in a broken world that you could have saved.
But it isn't for you to decide.
Or you.
Hmm.
So what would she decide? Because I think she'd want to do what's right. And you know it.
Mm-hmm. But you can't. Like, you can't.
Even now, even after what you've done, we can still find a way.
The beginning would have been an easy decision. Now, this is the easy decision. God. I don't live with that, man. Could have ended the whole thing. Joel needed a daughter.
What?
It's all right. You're with me. Take it slow. The drugs are still wearing off.
I was with the Fireflies, and then what drugs?
They were running some tests on you. Turns out there's a whole lot more like you. People that are immune. Dozens of them. Doctors, they couldn't make any of it work. They've actually... They've stopped looking for a cure.
That's why mine... Right? Like...
Raiders attacked the hospital. I barely got you out of there. We'll find you some new ones on the way.
Are people hurt?
Yes.
Is Marlene okay?
No.
I'm taking us home.
There's a lot to live with, man.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, wait. Let me go.
There you go. You
You just come after her.
Yep. Is that where credits are? Oh, no, okay. I was gonna say that would have been a baller move to end the season there, but we'll do what the game does. Yep, there we are, all the way. But yeah, man, that is.
We gotta walk the rest of the way. Probably about a 5-hour hike, but we can manage that.
Gone across the whole country.
Well, Sarah and I used to hike like this all the time. I wouldn't say it was her favorite thing. She wasn't a fan of the mosquitoes and such. But she was a big climber, or scampering. That's probably the right word.
You
That
two
girl,
are good friends.
she'd see a big rock and just... She would have liked you. Not to say the two of you are the same. Definitely different kids.
How so?
Well, she was a lot more, I want to say girly, and I'm not saying that you're not girly.
I'm not.
Yeah, you're not. So that, she was taller. She had a killer smile. Again, not saying that you don't. You know why I think she'd like you?
Why?
Because you're funny.
Very true.
I think you would have made her laugh. Anyway, I bet you would have liked her back.
Shift in Joel is just,
That I would have.
man, it's a lot to chew on, man. Ellie's not dumb. You can see it in her face already.
Not much further now.
Hey, wait.
Good, I'm glad they're doing this.
Back in Kansas City, you asked me about the first time I killed someone. When I got bit in the mall, I wasn't on my own. My best friend was there. and she got bit too. Know what to do, and she says, "You can just wait it out, be all poetic, and just lose our minds together." And then she did, and I had to. Her name was Riley, and she was the first to die. And then it was Tess, and then Sam.
That's not on you.
I know it.
Look, sometimes things don't work out the way we hope. You can feel like
But those can't be meaningless, right?
you don't know what to do next. But if you just keep going, you find something new to fight for. And maybe that's not what you
Swear to
want.
me. Swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
Fuck, man. Dude, like, I mean, that moment is like, it's everything, right? It's like the whole buildup for Joel, like, you know, he found his thing to fight for, and he can't give that up a second time, right? Like, he didn't get the choice the first time, so he's got a choice this time. And I forgot there's an inside the episode. I'm like turning the volume down. But like, when given the choice, he can't let it happen, and you understand it. But that choice is everything for Ellie.
Is not just about the beautiful parts of love. It's also about the dark side. It's about how everything wonderful and everything bad ultimately can start with love.
Right, yeah, that's wow. That's a perspective.
Here we are at the end, and we go
Back to the beginning.
played by Ashley Johnson, who is the true beginning of Ellie, because Ashley played Ellie in the game.
It's full
And Ashley
circle-ness,
is
man.
spectacular here.
It sort of brings the story around to meeting Ellie for the first.
Just hear Ellie.
There was a special level of it for me to play the mother of this character that I care so deeply about. It was the first time I've ever had to do a giving birth scene, and
Crushed it.
an incredible day. You're dealing with real babies, which that is usually hard, but they connected. It shows how strong Ellie is, of where she came from and what she had to go through, and that even her mother had such a fight to live.
Someone I wish was in the game.
If you've played the game, you have a new Ellie in your mind.
Yep.
I need to understand why she is immune, but I also need to understand how much she was loved. And there's this genetic connecting between the two Ellies that we know.
Yeah, right. That's, oh man. It's,
Anna and Marlene have gone through this whole journey of this pandemic together, and finally realized that connection when Marlene walks into the room.
I don't know if I can talk about this scene without crying. I do think that a wonderful gift of the series is seeing these two best friends' final words to each other in those last moments of Anna's last breaths.
man. Like, for those two actors,
To feel powerless. And Marlene certainly does in that moment, because Ellie is the child of her best friend since childhood, who she had to execute.
yeah. But flip it to the other side, where you get the choice.
Must do that. And that's how we begin our final episode.
Oh, Neil's had that written. That's cool.
They encounter a
man.
giraffe.
So my favorite moments in the whole game.
Everything that she'd experienced hasn't just gone away. It's just this moment of beauty. So precious, it's almost sad. But then, from speaking to Craig, I realized it was just living the truth of it.
Nailed it, man. Factual.
Beauty of it is such that we understand why the ice melts between them. He's still trying to keep her with him and saying, we don't have to keep going. We just take you back with me.
Yep.
And she's saying, no, we have to go out and finish it.
Yep.
We finished what we started.
No halfways.
I get emotional just thinking about it because it's their close where Joel finally tells her the true story about how he got his scar. And it was not because some guy shot at him, it's because he tried to kill him.
Yep.
And he missed, but he's glad he did. And she thinks she understands the lesson here, which is you'll get over this. He lost a daughter. He was crushed. He wanted to end his own life. He didn't.
I gotta do that line. Gotta get me now.
In the hospital, Marlene quickly realizes this is not the Joel she knew because he has an emotional connection.
It's about the way we treasure the people that we love more than everyone else.
Yep. Like, just the storytelling is...
So how do you take that any further? What if it's between saving all of humanity or this one girl?
Yeah, man.
The easiest choice he's ever made in his life.
Oh my God.
What would make one choose one thing over the survival of humanity, essentially?
Chance to get...
Which is something that he does because he finds himself incapable of losing again.
Yep. Doesn't get to be for that. Just doesn't... Like, just the lack of care.
Can't keep her safe forever.
Oh, you watch me.
The parking garage is the last shot. It's the last opportunity to save what Ellie can gift. He is wrestling with his grief.
There's no limit to how much we could defend it or judge it.
Yep.
Find the horror and the humanity.
This whole journey we've been working toward this trust that is forming between these two characters.
The rest of their lives is built on a lie.
She knows deep down that he's not taken.
Yep.
But she can't let herself believe it because it's too painful and it's too scary, the idea that
Yep.
purpose in life hasn't been fulfilled, that had been taken away from her by the person that she loves and trusts.
She nailed this. It's a moment in the game where you get the same thing. Like,
Time doesn't really heal anything. It makes it fade. But people heal things. And in that moment, you understand the depth of what she means to him. Horror of it all is that that's why the ending has to be the way it is. The ending is something that people have been arguing about for over a decade.
yep.
Joel have done what he did. And a lot of people will say no. A lot of people will.
Yes. Yeah.
In the end, the only thing we can be sure of is that we understand why he did it, and we understand Ellie would not have wanted him to do it.
Yep.
That complexity is why The Last of Us gorgeous.
Yep.
It's why it's the most beautiful story told in the entire genre of video game.
Yep.
It's why Neil is a genius, and it's
Yep.
why I wanted to make the show in the first place.
God, thank God for Craig Mazin, dude. Like, and the complexity of that moment is what drives the rest of the story that we're going to get, right? Like, it's this big lie and secret that's not really a secret or a lie as much as an admission of that. Like, for Joel, it's not that Ellie doesn't have a purpose, right? Like, Ellie not dying and having to kill Riley, and Tess dying, and Sam and Henry, and all the things that have happened. Like, it's not for nothing. It's not meaningless. It means something to Joel, and that's all he can see. And I love that Bella says it, because it's one of those things where in the game, when you watch her face in that final moment, you know exactly what's happening. She is digesting the fact that, yeah, it's taken this entire journey for them to get to this place where they are family at this point. And that's something that Joel should be able to understand. If he is that close to her, he should be able to understand that, like, if she was given the choice, she would have chosen to die to save all of humanity. Because for Ellie, that validates everything that she's gone through. And, like, you know, Bella says, it's to know that Joel took that away from her at this point, right? I mean, you're still recovering from what, you know, she did to David. And now she's got to wrestle with the fact that, like, she probably was going to be the cure for humanity, and that's been taken from her. And to try to deal with all of that at one time is not something that Ellie can do. And it's one of the most beautiful pieces of the storytelling for me in the game. And I love that they nail it here, where it's like, it's just all in her face. You see it. She digests that whole thing. The minute he says, I swear, she digests that everything that is going to go forward is going to be built on this thing that's most likely a lie. But I can't face that right now, right? Like, and you know, and it's a level of maturity in Ellie, right? Where it's like dealing with this right now is not going to do anything. It's not going to change anything. We can't go back. If Joel said that a group of raiders came in and killed everyone, he probably killed everyone. So like there is no one to go back to, right? Like Marlene just like begging to keep the hope alive, but like she had to go find another surgeon, another doctor. Like where are we going to get that in the world? And it's one of these where it's like it's a decision that cannot be undone, and dwelling on it or facing it head on when you don't have to. Okay, let's go. You know, like you see this acceptance where it's like, I know this is a lie, but that's as far as I'm willing to take this. And if this is what, like, where I'm gonna live, I'm gonna go in all in on being this guy's daughter. But that is going to be a moment that defines what that relationship is from this point forward. And it is a super complex emotional struggle to wrestle with that I think both characters understand both sides of, and is something that is always just kind of gonna be floating overhead. And I can't wait to see how Craig Mazin, in particular, because he's doing, you know, the writing, but like how Mazin and Druckmann take that concept, explore it the way it's explored in the game, but obviously, like they did in the show, find ways to explore it in ways where you can add and give us more. And there's oh man, like it's, God, I can't wait for season 2. It's one of these things, like Mazin said, like that is the thing that makes the game as beautiful and as undeniably phenomenal as it is. You cannot deny the genius of it, because that is something that's so easy. Like I said, I'm so fascinated to see what viewers think. Like, are you guys sitting at home going, I can totally ride with what Joel did, and like that's what I would have done in that scenario? Because certainly as a gamer, you feel that. But back in the day, when you don't know that you're going to get a part 2 and that this is going to be, you know, something that has at least more than one, and if, you know, Neil said that if he can come up with a good reason and a good story for a part 3, he'll do it. Otherwise, why? He wrapped it up perfectly in 2, and that's the genius of 1. Wrap that story up perfectly. Like, you never have to come back to it. Finds a genius way and a genius reason to come back, and part 2 is, in my opinion, an even better story than part 1. Which is hard to grapple with for all sorts of different reasons, but like there are levels of storytelling in part 2 that are beyond mind-blowing to me. And it comes with perspective. It's something that, like, you know, you deal with a little bit in the first game, especially because there weren't a lot of games where you all of a sudden like would have like a partner the whole game and then get a chance to play as that person. So like it's one of these it's just so, the whole freaking thing is so genius, and I'm stoked. I'm just like stoked to see how they grapple with that stuff and deal with the things that are in part 2. And like I said, I think it would make a ton of sense, especially knowing the success you have, knowing that HBO is going to want you to do more than just one more season, because like this thing is going to win all the awards. Speaking of which, I should probably, just in the background with no sound, put the Oscars back on to see who's winning the big awards. We got like 25 minutes left. But you know, it is one of these like that, like it's the like Mazin says, the genius. Yes, the Daniel boys taking director. That's as they should. Or no, wait, maybe it's too early for director. This has got to be original screenplay. Sorry, you're gonna see me get a little distracted from time to time. I'm actually, you know what, I'm gonna hit pause because this is the one I wanted to see. I wanted to see this acceptance speech. This is gonna be the first one for them. What were we talking about? The complexity of that relationship and that story, right? Like, it's gonna be so fascinating to see how they explore that in the television medium, because it's one of these things where like that first game is exquisite, and you sit there and like I said, like it's one of these things where Neil gives you an ending to that story. You never had to go back to part 1, but you found a reason to tell the next chapter, the next piece of that story, because it was worthwhile. I hope that we get that. I would love a part 3. And obviously you won't get a part 3 in time where you could do a story, but you could have time off, in between, and who knows, that any number of things. This is one of these where it's like, I just hope that working with Craig Mazin starts inspiring that guy for anything, whether it's another original or whatever. Like, I just need more content from that man's brain, because while Craig Mazin is doing here is amazing, from the adaptation and the way that he's finding the places to expand and grow. That's why, like, the complexity of the ending relationship and that story, like I said, it's so obvious and so easy to understand where Joel's coming from, especially when you've played it. Because, tell me that's Sarah Polly. In that moment, like, when you're the minute you find out they're gonna kill Ellie, I was like, how do I get a gun? Let me start fighting these guys, because I couldn't do it. Like, I was so attached. And look, I don't have children, but I think the next closest thing to losing a child would be losing a sibling unexpectedly, right? Like, that's something that I'm living through now. That is my reality. And if I was given the choice of letting my sister die and saving the entire world, or fucking grabbing a gun and mowing through that whole hospital to make sure that she lived an entire life, that is a no-brainer. I wouldn't even think twice. And it's exactly how I felt in the moment, without having lost my sister, right? This is way back in 2013. That, like, in the game, I felt that. And now that I've experienced a loss that I think is comparable, and watching my parents, who are living that story in reality, is a no-brainer for me. And I'm going to be fascinated to talk to my parents about this episode, because I think my mother would do exactly what I did, which is mow down that friggin' hospital and take your baby girl home. I think my dad would save the world. But, like, that's going on, like, the core of who my father is. So I'd be fascinated to see, especially after watching that episode, if indeed he would be able to. It's not a conversation you want to have, but, like, it's one of those where it's like Mazin says, lots of people will say yes and lots of people will say no, and you can understand the people that say no. Like, flip it to the other side. If I was humanity living in a zombie apocalypse and you could cure people, or at least immunize everyone, where, like, you're not going to create any more zombies, it seems like a no-brainer. And that is the genius. And I think they executed that perfectly. And the perfection of that execution from the beginning all the way to the end. And again, like, Mazin does unbelievable things throughout the entire season to elevate the material and add things that elevate and give us more, and allow an audience who isn't living these lives and playing as these characters to get close, I think, to places emotionally that you get to inside of playing the game. But it is the genius of Neil Druckmann that you have this story to work with, so that Craig Mazin can bring all these amazing extra things to it that really take the story to a different place and a different level. And for me, I've said this before, with the Sandman having a very similar experience that was even almost more accurate to the words and the comics and the panels. But again, it's like one of these things where no matter what the adaptation is, if you loved the original thing, knowing that the guy or guys who wrote the original things were working on the writing and the show that is being made, and then you get to see their vision come to life. I mean, and here, like I said, you're able to. I think it makes more sense to deviate, a little bit more than you do in the Sandman. But to have a year, I mean, not like in the same year, 2022, 2023, but in the last 365 days of my life, to have both of those shows for both properties that I, like, have adored for more than 10 years. It's just I personally feel like the luckiest human in the world to be experiencing the things that I love just done so exquisitely, and in realms like video games where it's never been done exquisitely before, and you always drop the ball somewhere, and there is literally no ball dropping anywhere at all in this show. I like if it and it's one of those, like, coming in, I knew how successful this show was gonna be because I know the story, I know what these characters are and how people will attach themselves. Like, the minute they said Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey had been cast, and that it was Craig Mazin who was gonna be like adapting it with, I was like, give it the awards, give it all the seasons, give it whatever it wants. And in my head, like, you could have easily, I think, been able to expand upon the story in a way where you could have just done 2 seasons to cover the first game. And you could do a season in between the 2 games. You could do 2 seasons in between. Like, in my head, you had enough on the bone to probably get to 5 or 6 seasons if you wanted to. Would I approach that realistically? No. I think a lot of shows after season 4, you can kind of start to see a falter, and especially when you're trying to expand on things that are so eloquently done and so perfectly done, But I've always said I think 3 or 4 would have been perfect. But one of the things that, like, really kind of made me reassess, like, some of the things in how I was viewing what they were tackling. When you made the show, you didn't know that you'd like. In my head, I was like, "There's no way that this isn't a this is gonna win." Like, I was just like, I had to have felt the way Game of Thrones fans felt when they found out that that was gonna be made, and like you can just see, it's like, oh man, it's gonna get to do all the seasons, and unfortunately they could have, but they didn't. But that's a story for a different day. But like, it's one of those where if you don't know for sure if you're gonna get more than just this one shot, then do it all. You know what I mean? And they do. They absolutely do it all. And I can so appreciate doing the entire first game in one season. And then I think figure out ways to expand it if you want to, or take your time with part 2 in a different way. And again, one of the things, like I was saying all season, like you almost needed that season in between. Bella's already the age she needs to be for Ellie. Like, she's, much like Catherine Newton, playing down to a younger age, and she's so good at it that we believe that she's a little girl, and she's not like 17, 18 probably when she was filming this. So it's one of those, like, yeah, like, you could jump right into it. But I hope that they do take their time and, give themselves the ability to, now that you've done the first season and you've done it perfectly, and you're gonna have hey, you got whatever you guys want, just tell the story exactly how you want to tell it. And if that's 2 seasons, if that's 1 season, if that's 3 seasons, whatever that is, I just hope that Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin get the opportunity to, and that Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal are just fired up to do whatever is asked. And it certainly seems like they would be and will be. Pedro is somebody who I think definitely identifies a lot with his characters, and he has a love for his audience. And I think, having lived in the Star Wars universe, can understand what a fandom is. And I think you can tell that the way these characters mean something to us, it means something to those two, and I'm just stoked to see where we go next. So I'm gonna shut up because we're coming down the home stretch here of the Oscars. I don't know what Top Gun just won, but they won something. I would assume sound, but I don't know. So shut up. I will do one more kind of like everything video. Like, after I edit, I want to be able to speak on things that I didn't talk about here, but whether it's how you handled the Ellie and Joel story and just the execution of what the video game was, the addition of Anna's story, I mean, giving Ashley Johnson that bit of storytelling, and like that moment to act that, and like they said, like, from a biological DNA standpoint, like, you have a joining of Ellie's in that moment, you know, like such a cool full circle moment. And there's so many really strong storytelling full circle moments already built into everything. And yeah, it is. I love how that character gets that moment with that actor. It is, and Ashley Johnson. I mean, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but like, I just sat there and I saw that, and just that, I'd be like, I'd give her a supporting actor, like in a limited series or whatever they're gonna call this at the Emmys. Like, I'd give her one. Why not? Why not? Like, shoot, man. Like that performance was pitch perfect, absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, everything that you get here, it's just crushed it. And obviously, you shouldn't be shocked. My non-spoiler review, adaptation, 5 out of 5. Episode, 5 out of 5. I mean, the home stretch of this show, and just like it is as perfect as I could ask it to be. And you know, again, it's one of those, like, I could see people being like, oh man, like, you kind of rushed through things, you know, we didn't do everything exactly the same. But once you get to the hospital, it's pretty damn accurate. And I really love the choice of shifting the whole tone of Terminator Joel, right? Like, it's not something upbeat. It's not this really physical, violent. It's just like it's just that shift of like everything that Joel understands he's doing, and he's fully committing. You know, there is no half measures. There's no halfway with this. We do it all the way to the end. And the minute he makes the decision, is the only thing he can do is take it all the way to the end. And God, I can't wait for more, man. So yeah, I mean, 5 out of 5s everywhere. 5 out of 5s on this season. This show is dynamite. It's spectacular. It's my favorite thing in the world right now, and I'm really sad that it's over. But, you know, fortunately we can watch Pedro and this guy. Grogu and Mando are back. I got something to replace this, but man, this is a special run, and a really, I love that it's like a pop cultural, like this is a moment that like everyone will remember, like season, like where you were season 1 of The Last of Us. And then you'll get those stories of people who, you know, found The Last of Us after it had been on for 1 or 2 or 3 seasons, and you know, that'll be fun. So anyway, I'm gonna shut up. I won't watch the end of the Oscars. I talk so much, but yeah, we'll definitely do one more video on The Last of Us at least. And thank you guys for all your support and your love, and I've loved having this ride with you guys. So that's it. I'm gonna shut up. Now it's your turn. I want to know what you think. How was the finale for you? Did you watch the Oscars all the way through and then watch the episode? Did you stop the Oscars and watch the episode? How did you approach things tonight? What'd you think of the episode for my gamers? Could you have possibly been more satisfied with the execution of that? I mean, everything was there that you needed it. That you really needed was. So did you feel that way? Did you want more? What was missing for you, if there was stuff missing? And if you didn't play the game, what are your thoughts, man? You made it all the way to the end. What did this story do to you? And what are you excited about for season 2? Like I said, that element and that dynamic between Ellie and Joel is something that certainly will get dissected. And us video gamers, we obviously know where we're going. So what are you thinking? Like, where could season 2 be going in your brain? What theories or ideas do you have? I'd be fascinated to see how you guys think the story could move forward, and what would be the next step for these characters, knowing that there is a 4-year jump. But yeah, with all that said, anything you got, good, bad, indifferent, on The Last of Us, specifically episode 9. I have the title. Hold on, it's Look for the Light. Put that down below, and then obviously, certainly, just your thoughts on the season in general as a whole. Anything you got, good, bad, indifferent, on The Last of Us, put it down below. Look forward to talking to you guys down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime. We're talking movies, TV, trailer reactions. You want to see any wash-up stuff I got on the episode and the season. You know, you just want to, you like what I've done here. You want to see what I do with Mando or anything from movies to TV. You just want to show a little love and support you haven't. Hey, come join C-Maniac Nation. We are growing every day, and I love that, man. I love more people to talk movies to. If you want to be a part of that, you can do it simply by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Mans, Cinema Sit Down. I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace.
Oh, you.
guys are still here. You snuck up on me. You must be looking for more of this guy. Well, I got 2 video options for you, man. Right up here and right over here. And if you want all those Seaman goodies, well, hey, come join the squad right on over there, and I'll catch you on the next one.